Oda Nobunaga, demon king or visionary? Imagine a country locked in endless war, with dozens of clans fighting like pieces on a chaotic chessboard. This was Japan in the 16th century, a time Western audiences might compare to Game of Thrones, except it was real. In this fractured world, one unlikely figure rose to rewrite the rules. His name was Oda Nobunaga. Born in Owari, a relatively small and weak province, young Nobunaga was mocked as a fool. He dressed without care, carried himself with arrogance, and even disrupted his own father's funeral by throwing incense casually. People whispered he was unfit for leadership. But beneath that strange behavior burned an unshakable will. The first great test came at the Battle of Okehazama in 1560. The mighty Imagawa Yoshimoto invaded with more than 20,000 men, while Nobunaga had barely a fraction. Instead of surrendering, he attacked. Using weather, terrain, and surprise, he struck directly at Yoshimoto's camp. The enemy commander was killed, and a giant army scattered. This was more than a battle. It was a signal that boldness and speed could defeat tradition and numbers. From this moment, Nobunaga was no longer the fool of Owari. He was a rising force, a storm given human form. And the era of small victories was over. The vision of Tenkafubu. On his war banners Nobunaga wrote 3 characters, Tenkafubu. It meant rule the realm by force of arms. But behind the phrase was a dream, and the chaos of a century and unify Japan under a single will. To achieve this, Nobunaga understood that war alone was not enough. He needed new systems of economy and governance. He abolished tolls on merchants and encouraged open markets. This policy, called Rakuchi Rakusa, created something like a free market centuries before economists in Europe would theorize it. Merchants prospered, goods flowed, and towns under Nobunaga's rule became vibrant hubs of activity. On the battlefield, Nobunaga embraced new technology, the arquebus, the matchlock gun. Most generals feared it would dishonor the code of the samurai. But Nobunaga saw a different truth. He trained peasants to fire in organized lines, rotating volleys that never allowed the enemy to breathe. At the Battle of Nagashino, he used thousands of muskets in a coordinated strike against the feared Takeda cavalry. The thunder of gunfire crushed what was once the strongest cavalry in Japan. To foreign viewers, this was the moment Japan stepped into modern war. In politics, too, Nobunaga was pragmatic. He raised men of talent, like Toyotomi Hideyoshi, from humble origins to high command. Bloodline mattered less than brilliance. It was another break from tradition, another reason the old elite feared him. Power is theater. Nobunaga understood that people obey what they can see and hear. He turned castles, roads, banners, and ceremonies into a language of power. Standardized flags, drum beats, and conch shells signaled timing across units, making his armies feel like one machine. Markets were placed near castle towns so merchants, artisans, and soldiers mixed, keeping money and morale in constant motion. At Azuchi, festivals and audiences drew craftsmen and even foreigners, broadcasting a cosmopolitan brand before the word existed. Even tea gatherings became high-stakes meetings where rivals measured nerve, status, and intent. For Western viewers, think of a modern leader using product launches and stagecraft to move investors, citizens, and competitors at once. In Nobunaga's world, spectacle and logistics were the same weapon. The demon king of the sixth heaven. Great change rarely comes gently. Nobunaga's enemies included not only rival clans but also powerful Buddhist institutions that commanded armies of warrior monks. At Mount Hiei, overlooking Kyoto, these monasteries were both sacred and strategic. Nobunaga demanded submission. When denied, he ordered fire and sword. Thousands were killed, temples burned, and the mountain that once symbolized faith became a graveyard. In the West, leaders who mix politics and religion often spark controversy. For Nobunaga, there was no hesitation. Unity required fear as well as reform. This ruthless side earned him the name Demon King of the Sixth Heaven, a title taken from Buddhist cosmology. It was both an insult and a badge of power. The same was true against the Iko-Iki, a mass movement of peasants and monks united by faith in Pure Land Buddhism. For over 10 years Nobunaga waged campaigns to crush them, finally destroying their last fortress at Nagashima. It was total war, not just against warriors but against communities. To his supporters, this was necessary to break the cycle of chaos. To others, it was tyranny. Both perspectives remain true. Encounter with the West. While he burned monasteries, Nobunaga welcomed foreigners. Portuguese traders brought firearms, maps, wine, and strange mechanical clocks. Jesuit missionaries brought Christianity, which Nobunaga tolerated, even supported at times. Why? Because he saw them as tools. Tools against rival Buddhist powers, and tools to access global trade. He even constructed Azuchi Castle, a fortress unlike anything in Japan. It was not only military but symbolic, with towering walls and bright murals, a declaration of his vision. Some Europeans compared it to the castles of kings. It announced, Japan could rival any world power, if united. But power breeds danger. In 1582, while Nobunaga rested in Kyoto with few guards, his general Akechi Mitsuhide struck. At the temple of Honno-ji, fire consumed the night. Why did Mitsuhide betray him? Some say revenge for insults. Others claim fear of Nobunaga's growing tyranny. The truth burned with the flames. Nobunaga ended his life on his own terms, choosing death over capture. The Demon King fell, not by enemy armies, but by the hand of a trusted ally. The legacy of Nobunaga. Although Nobunaga perished in fire, his vision did not. Toyotomi Hideyoshi seized command, unifying much of Japan. Tokugawa Ieyasu later built lasting peace that endured for over 2 centuries. But behind both men stood Nobunaga's blueprint: speed, reform, and audacity. So who was he? A liberator who ended endless war? Or a tyrant who silenced opposition with fire? Perhaps the answer is that he was both. And that is why his story remains magnetic. A modern echo. If Nobunaga lived today, some might compare him to Elon Musk. Both challenged tradition with impossible ideas. Both ignored ridicule, driving forward until entire industries or nations shifted. Musk pushes rockets and electric cars. Nobunaga pushed muskets, free markets, and the dream of unity. Supporters and enemies alike were forced to move in their orbit. One disrupted technology. The other disrupted a nation. Final thoughts. Nobunaga's life was short, violent, and unfinished. Yet he set in motion changes that reshaped Japan forever. When you picture him, do not choose between demon and visionary too quickly. Hold both, and you will see why history cannot look away. Because in the clash between fire and vision, Nobunaga still stands.